بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا ومولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. اللهم ربنا أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا حقائق الأشياء كما هي ربنا زدنا علما وعملا وإخلاصا يا رب العالمين. اللهم انصر أولياءك في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم انصرهم على عدوك وعدوهم إنك على كل شيء قدير. اللهم سدد رأيهم وسدد رميهم وسدد خطاهم يا رب العالمين. اللهم فرج عنا وعن إخواننا في مشارق الأرض ومغاربها. اللهم نفس كربنا وكربنا وثبت أقدامنا وأقدامهم والطف بنا وبهم يا أرحم الراحمين يا رب العالمين. وصل وسلم على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا مولانا محمد وبارك وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين آمين يا رب العالمين. Okay, so going to read this article. It's an encyclopedia article. Just get a bit some idea of Aristotle's physics. What is Aristotle's physics like? So Aristotle in his metaphysics, and this is reference to a specific passage, contrasts with what he calls physique, episteme, physical science. Science is not a good word. I mean, science just means knowledge, I think, in Latin. But now science is something specific which didn't exist before, let's say, 16th century, 17th century. That's why, like, the knowledge which is called physics. Physics did exist before 16th century. But science is something new, a new concept in that way. The word is old, but the concept is new. So Aristotle contrasts what he calls physics with the other theoretical sciences. I think at some point we did look at his classification of knowledge in theoretical, practical, and there's one more. Theoretical, practical, and art, technical. I can't remember at the moment, but he means theoretical and practical in a specific sense. And then there's the productive knowledge, the third part, whatever it names it. Theoretical sciences, mathematical science, and theology. The upshot of the comparison is that physics is similar to theology. It is important. That's why when Imam Ghazali wrote his Maqasid al-Philosopha, in which he just laid down the basic ideas of Greek philosophers and their Islamic followers or Muslim followers, he started with theology rather than physics. I mean, he started with logic because logic is a prerequisite, but then he went on to theology. And I think one of the reasons was that theology is the one we have the most difference, and the basic difference with the Greek philosophy as Muslims, but also because theology and physics they deal with similar things. They deal with substances. So you start with the highest substance. But on the other hand, without really good grip on Aristotle's physics, it's very hard to it's very hard to understand his theology, so to speak. And by theology, we mean not what we mean theology today, but by theology, basically, we mean what Aristotle calls metaphysics. So, metaphysics and theology and first philosophy, they are the same thing for all practical purposes for Aristotle, because the substance theology deals with is the same substance metaphysics deals with, and it's the same substance first philosophy deals with, more or less. Okay, so the upshot of the comparison is that physics is similar to theology. It's very important because both theology and physics treat substances. The substance is the most important thing in this whole concept. Substance. Linguistically speaking, substance is derived from Latin. Latin word, I think substar. From substart, which means standing firm. It's related to also similar word substantia, which mean being or essence. So standing firm refers to, tells us the core of the concept of substance, something which stands firm for other things within a thing are changing. The idea was that if everything changes, then we can't understand, can't make sense of a change within something. So there must be something standing firm while things around it changes. So for example, we can make sense of change in a color of a table, for example, while the core table stands firm, for example. That was the, and what is standing firm within a thing, that's called substance, ultimately, obviously. That's the idea. That's the idea. So you will see that in all the definitions. And despite all critique of Aristotle in Descartes and others, in Locke, for example, modern philosophy retains the basic concept of substance. So the core concept in Descartes' positive philosophy is substance, and his definition of substance had huge impact on both empiricist traditions and empiricist tradition through Locke and rationalist traditions through for example Spinoza and others. Um, yeah. So the upshot of the comparison is that physics is similar to theology. That's very, very important to get a handle on Aristotle's physics and theology, because both theology and physics treat substances, entities which are capable of separate existence on their own. So this is the definition of substance in a way. Substance are the entities which are capable of separate existence on their own. So for example, a color cannot be a substance because color can't exist on its own. It has to it has to it has to have a locus. Um, but the book, for example, it can stand on its own, yeah, in a relative term. So book is in a way substance at some level. Obviously, then there's the whole debate about what is substance actually in a thing, and primary substance, secondary substance, all those things. But this similarity does not allow for an identification of the two theoretical disciplines, because physics. So they are similar, but they are not the same. So what's the difference? Because physics unlike to treat changeable substance. So that's the second most changeable substance. Whereas theological inquiry investigates the domain of the eternal and immutable divine. So divine, in a way, we can see for Aristotle changes something. How should I say? Changes something defective. Because if you are perfect, you don't need to change. So change is the cause of change is basically, in a way, a lack of perfection. So that's why theology deals with substances which don't change at certain level. For example, it deals with some substances which do change, but that change is constant or harmonious. So it's better than the change which, accelerates, or a change which is not harmonious. Yeah, so that's very, very important. This, as Aristotle also stressing, means that if there were no unmovable non-physical entities, physics would be the first philosophy. So metaphysics is called first philosophy because it deals with the highest level of being, the perfect beings, which is ultimately God. And God is something not personal for Aristotle, as far as I understand it, but something that doesn't mean, so it doesn't move. And this had a great impact on later day Islamic ilm al-kalam, because they try to understand. They try to understand God's Allah Subhanahu wa Taala's sifat characteristics in the context of their training within Aristotelian physics and first philosophy. Okay, it would give an account of everything there is in the world by inquiring into the principles of everything. Okay, we can stop here. Subhanakallah wa bihamdika nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa natubu. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi subhanallah al-azim. حسبي الله لا إله إلا عليه توكلت وهو ربي العرش العظيم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبمحمد نبيا ورسولا. حسبي الله لا إله إلا عليه توكلت وهو رب العرش العظيم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. وصلى وسلم على سيدنا ومولانا وحبيبنا وشفينا وطبيب قلوبنا وقرة أعيننا محمد وآله وأزواجه وذريته أجمعين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. آمين.